Good morning. Good morning on this lovely, soft, snowy day. Welcome to First Parish, Unitarian Universalist of Chelmsford. We're a covenantal community gathered for worship, mutual care, faith formation through spiritual and ethical discernment, and in service to the common good. I'd like to extend a special welcome if you're visiting us for the first time. We're so glad that you joined us today, and you can learn more about us or contact us via our website, uuchelmsford.org, or reach out to our Director of Lifespan Faith Formation, Dolores Heredia Wood, at dre@uuchelmsford.org. I'm Reverend Ellen Spiro, and I'll be leading our service today with Steve Zaki, our music director, and Dolores, our Director of Lifespan Faith Formation. Brenda Rogers is running our worship tech this morning. Joan Coyne is our online chat host. If you wish to join in the online chat, you have to join our worship service through the YouTube link option that is on our website and be logged into your Google account. While the COVID numbers are receding, we extended worship attendance to online only through February 20th, next week. We are going to return to multi-platform worship on February 27th, and more to come on that as the date draws closer. The Welcoming Congregation Committee has asked me to share a correction to their podcast review book club. So for this year's LGBTQIA+ podcast book club, we are highlighting the work of philosopher Abigail Thorne, who runs the YouTube channel Philosophy Tube, which presents educational content on various topics from LGBTQIA+ issues to fighting fascism through a combination of acting and visual style that makes her videos uniquely engaging and enjoyable. So the date for this book club discussion will be via Zoom on February 26th at 6:30 with a backup date of March 5th. And we will send out a Zoom link closer to the February 26th date. Finally, we will have a social hour online after the service, hosted today by Terry Rabalski, and we will provide the Zoom link at the end of the service if you would like to join there. And now I invite us to center ourselves for worship with Steve's prelude, followed by Dolores' chalice lighting.
Good morning. I'm the Faith Formation Director here at First Parish of Chelmsford. My name is Dolores. Lifespan Faith Formation is the gift of love this community gives each other, be it special events through collaborations like the ice cream social the RE Council would have been hosting on this day in years past, RE for youth, coming of age for our teenagers, AL for all ages, young adult groups, small group ministry gatherings, a myriad of faith formation special interest courses from the Tao to the Eighth Principle, and the unique connection opportunities like the great FPCC Recipe Project. Faith formation gives you, the gift to explore and exchange ideas to further understand our community and Unitarian Universalist religion. And yes, it answers or helps to answer those big questions. Faith formation explains why religion exists, or at least attempts to. It says that because human beings are meaning makers, we have a drive to understand the awesome world around us and for our present here to mean something. Faith formation informs us that religion springs from the human heart. Evidence is found since the earliest human beings that we have had a longing to know why we are here, where we came from, and what will happen when we die, if anything at all. It is from this innate wondering of what life is meant to be that religion was born. In faith formation, we are taught that religion is not meant to right the wrongs. It's meant to give us the values and morals to discern right from wrong. It is up to us not to dredge up hate from the past, but to dig into it so that in the present we may faithfully plant seeds of compassionate justice and can hope for loving kindness and, yes, peace for everyone, for everything in the future. Faith formation shows us that religion does indeed bind us together. It binds meaning to advance to our environment. It binds a community to a sense of purpose, making each of us feel we belong in this sanctuary. It binds us to something bigger than just ourselves. It binds us, all of us, in all that's good. It binds us all in the sacred in all of us. I light this chalice in the spirit of our UU faith formation. May we continue to give each other this gift of love. Thank you.
Thanks, Dolores. So as part of our widening the circle today, which widening a circle can mean stepping a bit out of our comfort zone to be able to include more, whether it is more people, or more ideas, or more experiences. And Dolores and I were talking about that today and decided we're going to widen our circle about how we do our covenant. So I will read it in Spanish today. And I invite you to join me, as this is definitely out of my comfort zone. Nosotros, los miembros de la primera parroquia de Chelmsford, convinimos juntos a sostener y fortalecer nuestra amada comunidad honorando y celebrando el espíritu de la vida, nutriendo toda almas en búsqueda de la verdad y lo sagrado, cuidar y estar presentes al uno y otro en nuestros alegrías y tristezas, dar testimonio mediante servicio a la justicia y paz, y ser buenos cuidadores en nuestra congregación, nuestra gerencia, nuestros principios unitarios, universalistas y la tierra.
Wow, I'm impressed. I hope I can do it as well in English. We, the members of First Parish of Chelmsford, covenant together to sustain and strengthen our beloved community by honoring and celebrating the spirit of life, nurturing all souls in our search for truth and the sacred, caring and being present to one another in our joys and sorrows, bearing witness through service, justice, and peace, and being good stewards of our congregation and our heritage, our Unitarian Universalist principles, and our earth.
I'd like to pause now for a time of gratitude as we consider what we may give, as we also consider what we receive from this community. I would like to offer gratitude today to our standing committee, our board of trustees, our elected lay leadership, who are working behind the scenes, as we all are these days, to see our congregation through this particularly liminal and complicated time. Joan Coyne, our chair, Aggie Brennan, our clerk, Diana Cohane, our treasurer, Andrew Worthen, Brian Snow, Chris Sweetnam, Michelle Hillman, Neil Harmon, and who am I not remembering? Always write things down, right? With apologies, my brain is not full, but please know that every member of our standing committee is working hard to keep our community safe and grounded and healthy, and I offer them my deepest thanks.
Today's oral age story is based on a European Jewish folk tale. It's called The Dream. Once there was a woman who lived in a simple village. She had a simple life with very few needs. One night she had a dream. She dreamed a treasure was buried under a bridge far, far away in the capital city. The dream did not feel like a dream at all. It felt as though it was really happening to her. Have you ever had a dream like that? In the dream, she saw herself approaching the city, digging under the bridge and discovering a big box full of the best treasures. The dream filled her with desire for something she previously did not even know that she had lacked. The next night, the woman had the same dream. It was just as before. She was even wearing the same clothes and her gray coat. On the third night, she wondered if she would dream again. And she did. And all the details were the same. She was convinced that there was indeed a treasure to be found under the Capitol Bridge. She asked her neighbors if they would please watch her house and water her plants while she was gone, and her friend if they could please take care of her pets. She donated the food in her pantry to her church, finished knitting the prayer shawls for others to be blessed in worship, baked treats for the children in RE, and attended the church committee meetings and let them all know she'd be gone for a while. She was going to the capital city to find her treasure. With all that done, she put on her gray coat, petted her pets, said goodbye to her neighbors and friends and minister, and set off for the long trip to the Capitol. After a few days, she arrived at the Capitol. When she approached the Capitol Bridge, she was surprised to find a guard. That had not been in her dream. Thinking that the guard would surely not let her dig under the bridge, she waited. But she couldn't access the bridge. When one guard went off duty, another came on. Finally, she just couldn't stand it any longer. She approached the guard and confessed that she had had a dream. She would come to the Capitol Bridge, dig in the earth, and find a treasure. That's funny, said the guard. For the past few nights, I've had a most vivid dream too. I dreamed of a woman looking just like you, with a gray coat, who lived in a simple house, in a simple village far, far away, would come. But the strangest part of the dream was that in the woman's home was hidden a beautiful treasure. Upon hearing this, the woman hurried back home. She couldn't wait to get home, and in her haste, forgot her gray coat. Though, sure enough, there was a treasure waiting for her. When she got back, everyone gathered to throw her a welcome back party. They even gave her a special prayer shawl, since she no longer had the gray coat. Indeed, the treasure had been right there. She had possessed it all along. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. And of course, the second I sat down, Jeanette Moreau is the other member of our standing committee. So with deepest apologies and deepest gratitude, Jeanette, thank you for serving our church. Our historic reading this morning is from the First Parish. It's the covenant of the First Parish in Cambridge, Massachusetts from 1636, although similar versions of it could be found in first parishes across all of Massachusetts. We covenant with the Lord and with one another, and do bind ourselves in the presence of God to walk together in all his ways, according as he is pleased to reveal himself unto us in his blessed word of truth. Our modern reading today is the current covenant of the Unitarian Universalist Association, which was adopted in 1984 and amended in 1995. We, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Association, we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. The living tradition which we share draws from many sources. Direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder, affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. Words and deeds of prophetic women and men, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual life. Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. Humanist teachings, which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. Spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Grateful for the religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith, we are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. As free congregations, we enter into this covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and support. So as you may have gathered from both our UUA covenant and our First Parish covenant, we gather around covenant rather than creed. What is the difference between the two? It might feel a bit vague or subtle, but they are fundamentally different. A creed is a set of stated theological beliefs that members of a religion must adhere to in order to be accepted into the community. Those of us who grew up in a Trinitarian Christian church will recognize the Apostles' or the Nicene creeds, which start, "I believe in God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth." In Islam, the first pillar, called the Shahadas, or profession of faith, there is no God but God, and Muhammad is his prophet, could be understood as a creed, as a person must believe this in order to be a member of the Muslim community. A covenant, on the other hand, emphasizes sacred relationship and the ethical and spiritual practices that ground a community in it. Judaism's Shema Israel, found in Deuteronomy chapter 6, 4 through 9, begins as a creed. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone." But then it shifts. "You shall love the Lord God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Keep these words that I am commanding you today in your heart. Recite them to your children and talk about them when you are at home and when you are away and when you lie down and when you rise. Bind them as a sign on your hand, fix them as an emblem on your forehead, and write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." When the Puritans founded their congregations across Massachusetts, they chose to gather around this ancient biblical practice of covenant. And as we heard in the historic reading, we covenant with the Lord and with one another and do bind ourselves in the presence of God to walk together in all his ways, according as he is pleased to reveal himself unto us with his blessed word of truth. In these covenants, there is a shared belief in God. However, the emphasis was on how to live or embody that relationship with God and one another. to love with all your heart, to bind the words and to bind to one another, to walk in the ways of the holy as they are revealed. The words used in a covenant are more open to possibility in a way that the words in a creed are closed and final. Covenant is a sacred agreement that we enter into by choice. Even if a covenant has creedal aspects to it, like a belief in God, there is room for revelation, for change, for learning. We walk together within the words. The Unitarian controversy, which erupted in the congregational churches in Massachusetts and beyond in the early 1800s, was a debate between the liberal and conservative groups about whether the covenantal tradition of our Puritan ancestors was enough to bind people together, or if a creed was needed. The conservatives, aka the Trinitarians, felt that a creed was necessary to ensure theological orthodoxy, while the liberals, aka the Unitarians, felt that covenant preserved a freedom of conscience and personal experience of the divine or the sacred that a creed would actually undermine. So each congregation voted which way to go, and thus Unitarianism as a separate denomination was born. The words and thus the beliefs of a creed cannot be altered, even after generations, but a covenant can be. It is not something to do lightly, as a covenant does name what is sacred and of ultimate meaning. But as an agreement for how to be in sacred community, a covenant can be adapted and updated, or even written anew as the community grows and changes. Our current Unitarian Universalist covenant, more commonly known as our 7 principles, was adopted at the General Assembly of Unitarian Universalist Congregations in 1984. And in 1995, it was updated to include that last source of earth-centered traditions and spiritualities. In 2013, a grassroots movement started within Unitarian Universalism to adopt an 8th principle. This is what they propose. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. The Unitarian Universalist Association Board has tasked a commission called the Article 2 Commission in reference to the UUA bylaw Article 2 that requires regular review of our UUA covenant to come up with recommendations by January of 2023 for changes to our UUA covenant, including adopting the 8th principle. It would then come to a vote before the General Assembly of our Unitarian Universalist congregations in June. In the meantime, the 8th Principle Project and members of the Article 2 Commission are asking congregations to explore, discuss, learn, and share their feedback about the 8th Principle. And even more importantly, to explore, discuss, learn, and share what it means to actually do the work. To bind ourselves to walk together in ways that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions within ourselves and our institutions. In other words, it's not enough to believe in dismantling racism and creating beloved community. We have to bind ourselves and walk together into it. In the words of Miss Frizzle of the Magic School Bus, we have to take chances and make mistakes and get messy, for this is not easy work. Dismantling racism is not just about changing the hearts and minds of individuals. It's about addressing the hard truth that this nation was founded upon practices of racism, chattel slavery, and removal of people from their lands, making racism systemic across all of our institutions and culture, including Unitarian Universalism itself. If there is such a thing as sin, racism is America's original one, and it will continue to haunt us until white people are willing to face this truth with honesty, openness, and humility. Given that Unitarian Universalism is predominantly white, this includes us. As the authors of the Eighth Principle Project write on their website, at a global level, this principle would not necessarily make sense. For instance, the oppression of women is fundamental to poverty and lack of development in many areas. But in the US, racism stands out. The two worst crises of the UUA, late 1960s and now, were both related to race. Racism in the US stems from chattel slavery, where people were uniquely, legally treated as property that could be inherited for something, skin color, they had no control over. The UUA has done well with women becoming ministers and leaders, and the 7 principles themselves came out of the women's movement within UUism. The LGBTQIA+ community is well represented as members, ministers, RE staff, and other leadership in individual congregations and the UUA, and the Welcoming Congregation program has been very effective. We could use something similar for racism. Some congregations have done a good job of making sure they are accessible to people with disabilities, although many UU spaces are still not fully accessible. The UUA, the US, and the world also have a lot of problems deeply based in economic class oppression. This principle includes that, but is not highlighting it. When it comes to this work, we have had our fits and starts here at First Parish. After the murder of George Floyd, we put a Black Lives Matter banner on our building and have continued to hang banners and fly flags in support of BLM and African American history and celebrations, along with those in support of the LGBTQIA+ communities. I and others here have been part of a group working with the New Bethel AME Church in Lowell in supporting a trauma healing ministry where we hear many stories about the traumas caused by systemic racism. Others from First Parish are involved in other ways, for example, with the Merrimack Valley Project in supporting people facing immigration and deportation issues, and with the International Institute of New England to assist Afghan families to resettle in the Lowell area. We started a multicultural ministry group a few years ago that then shifted to an anti-racism team that has ebbed and flowed, but has not yet taken a strong, consistent root. I don't think it's because of a lack of will or interest, but it's a big, hard thing, and we've had some other big, hard things to distract us, like a major building renovation to make our building accessible, or a pandemic. Tackling big, hard things is always easier when we're given tools to guide the questions and the conversations and to outline the path for making a decision and a commitment. The Eighth Principle Project can do that for us. They have a study guide to do just that, and Caroline Snow and Dee Halzak have graciously agreed to facilitate a study group on the Eighth Principle. So keep an ear and an eye out for when that group will start later in the spring. Meanwhile, if you're interested, you can go to the Eighth Principle Project's website, eighthprincipleuu.org. Note that it's 8, the number 8 and TH, principleuu.org. Every generation, Unitarian Universalism has in some way, shape, or form widened the circle of our covenant to make our faith larger and more welcoming, although it often takes a generation or two, as each congregation moves at its own pace. For all our progressive religious values, we can be reluctant to embrace change and challenge. We look back and lift up in our history those who have led the charge for racial justice, Black pioneers like Reverend Egbert Ethelred Brown or Reverend Joseph Jordan or Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, abolitionists like Theodore Parker, or civil rights activists like James Reed and Viola Liuzzo. But we talk less about the failures of our denomination as a whole in those generations to support and join them. We talk less about the uglier side of our history, including the economic benefit from slavery, promotion of the science of eugenics, and the moments when this faith could have stepped up, but was stalled by racism within our leadership and our ministry, as well as our congregations. Some Unitarian Universalist congregations are not waiting for the 2023 General Assembly and have voted to adopt the eighth principle as part of their covenants. For this is the nature of covenant, that as we walk together with the sacred and the holy and one another, we are constantly learning and deepening our understanding of what it means to bind ourselves together in a spirit of truth and a spirit of love. It is time, past time, for us to widen the circle and to see where it takes us deeper into beloved community. I'd like to invite us now to open our minds and our hearts, our bodies and our souls to our source of being, whether we find that within ourselves, in the presence of the human spirit and community, in the wonder and rhythms of the creation around us, or in the embrace of God, Goddess, or however we name the divine. I received this week a package from Deirdre Heck full of these little suns that she has been crocheting often while she is attending worship from home. And I just wanted to say thank you and to share that sunshine with all of you. And I have them And we'll leave some on my door if you happen to be in the building and want to pass some sunshine on to somebody you know who might need it. Or just let me know and we'll figure it out. But my gratitude to Deirdre for that. As we center for meditation and for prayer and for contemplation of joys and sorrows and things around us, it can go in so many directions. We can worry about the state of the country, the state of the world. As in one part, Ukraine and Russia are on the edge of war, as are other places all around the globe. We can be hopeful in receding pandemic numbers and cautiously worried about another variant appearing. We can despair about many things gone wrong, around issues of racial justice, gender and sexual orientation justice, economic justice. We can worry about our precious planet. We can also find hope and beauty. As I was saying to Steve and Brenda and Dolores this morning, I love a snow like this. Soft and quiet. That slows us down enough. The increase in light. Nature's rhythm and seasons that remind us that life keeps going as it does, whatever our worries and concerns. And I would like to close with this meditation by William Singford, the first African-American president of our Unitarian Universalist Association, from Lifting Our Voices. We are a gentle and generous people, but let us not forget our anger. May it fuel not only our commitment to compassion, but also our commitment to make fundamental changes. Our vision of the beloved community must stand against a vision that would allow the privilege of the few to be accepted as just and even holy. Our religious vision must ask again and again, who is my neighbor? Strive always to include more and more of us. As we intone the words that gave birth to this nation, we the people, we are and we should be both a gentle and an angry people. Amen and blessed be.
Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
That was beautiful, amazing choir. I wish you well going forth this week, and I leave you with these words by Reverend Rod Richards from Our Soul Matters materials. You won't be alone. We'll be side by side with one another, with people yet to come, with partners we have yet to meet, creating ever-widening, perfectly imperfect, precisely imprecise circles and ovals and oblong things of beauty as we practice sacred flexibility, welcoming love and healing pain, and demanding justice and saving lives. Go forth and make some new shapes.